Good to see you.
Kind of higher.
But we heard you were retiring.
Yeah. It's all over the internet.
Now, just a minute. I'm not retiring. Can we put that rumor to rest once and for all? Oh, my goodness.
Well, maybe they meant you were shy on retiring.
I beg your pardon? This is very cool because I've always enjoyed your work, both of you. First of all, Barbara, every time I look on Twitter, it seems like you've got a new project coming out, which is so cool.
It's a weird thing. I mean, I started acting and then I took a little break because I had kids and they kind of needed some attention for a while. And then I came back and started working again, and there was a movie that I really wanted to do called Jacob's Wife, and I produced it, and it meant so much to me. I was like, this is the only movie I want to make. If I make this movie, I'm done. I can be done. It took me 4 years to make the movie, to get the money and put the cast together and get the director and everything. When we were finished filming, I said, oh, I gotta make the next one. I just don't know how to stop. I think you probably feel the same way, don't you?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Once it's in your blood, that's what you do.
Yeah, now you were in Reanimator and, so many other movies. And we've run some of them, From Beyond and Castle Freak.
Yeah.
And were those all with Stuart Gordon?
Those were all with Stuart, yeah.
Yeah, Stuart has a big history here in Chicago.
I know.
He was first doing stage work here. And in fact, he did the first superhero play here in Chicago. It was called Warp. And he was way ahead of the whole, trend there. It was so cool. And I met him once here at Flashback, and I'm very proud to say that he said to me, your show was one of the influences on me doing horror movies. And I was like, that was just amazing to me.
How long have you been doing it?
I'm not retiring.
I'll interview you now.
No, I actually started locally here in 1979.
How old were you?
Now?
No,
then.
When you started.
I was in my mid-20s.
You look amazing.
Some of us, the
Come
men.
on. Give it up.
The wig doesn't show gray. That's probably the most important thing I could say here. Joe, a thrill to meet you. So many great, I wish you had been here last year. I hosted a costume contest. We had somebody come up in an absolutely perfect Gizmo costume. And everybody was applauding, they thought it was great. And then he peeled it off and he was one of the evil gremlins. It was one of the most outstanding things that I had ever seen. And I just was amazed by that. So much great work. And this is something maybe that a lot of people don't know. Do you want to start out as a cartoonist?
Yes, I was going to be a cartoonist. And once I realized that every day if you did a comic strip you had to have a new joke, I realized, well, that sounds pretty daunting. I don't know if I could do that. Now, I went to art school, and at art school they told me cartooning wasn't an art, and that I had to take something else, and so I took film.
Wow, that's so cool. But then you went to film school.
Well, it wasn't really film school. It was still the same art school, but with the same 25 kids and 2 cameras, and it was all 16 millimeter, and everything was very cheap. And you didn't. All I learned was how much more I could learn about movies if I just went to the Grindhouse in Philadelphia, which they had a lot of grindhouses.
Sure.
They specialized in 1930s horror movies and stuff, and I spent all the money I was supposed to spend on art supplies going to the movies, which ended up standing me in good stead when I actually did make movies, because I realized I had so many in my head already. It was really easy to draw on them,
You were a fan of Chuck Jones, I believe?
Oh, of course, yeah. He was a friend of mine.
Oh, really? How cool. And I think you can see some of this. For example, in the Twilight Zone movie, when all the strange creatures pop up and everything, and one of them even does, I think, the Warner Brothers, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, that's part of my cartoon background.
See, that's a great history of cartoons going into horror movies. And Robert and I were just talking about the fact that there's a real connection between horror movies and comedy.
Absolutely.
And I think,
especially good horror movies.
Yeah, and especially in the movies you've done, I think that we see a lot of that.
Well, I get a lot from James Whale. You know, if you go back to The Invisible Man, you know, he's obviously crazy, and he's very funny when he's doing strange things, and when he throws ink in the eye of the cop, and you say, oh, that's funny. Then he picks up a stool and beats him to death, and you go, oh, well, maybe that's not so funny. There's always this dichotomy of what's funny and what's not, and horror movies are all absurd anyway.
And there, Una O'Connor as the innkeeper's wife, she was hilarious in that. And it really seems to me that there's a connection between it. And in so many of your movies, I mean, people watch Gremlins, and there's things that seem so serious, but there's some stuff that's so incredibly funny. And
but also, you're carrying on the tradition, because you not only do you run these old great horror movies, but you run, in my estimation, the best prints around.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate.
These things never look as good anywhere else as they do on your show.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about it. Yeah, they look pristine, and you can see all the details. And it's so. The one thing I always liked about the Universal movies is that they create an atmosphere. And some people go, "Oh, it's black and white," and it's like, my God, look at this, because all the shadow and the way that things are shot is so impressive.
Well, you obviously have an appreciation of that, and it comes through. And I think that's really good, because you have a lot of young viewers. And the great thing is that you're introducing them to something that maybe ordinarily they wouldn't watch.
Yeah, in fact, in some markets, I believe, before we were in them, they hadn't seen over the air on broadcast the Universal Classics in maybe 20 years, if not more. So we introduced a new generation to it, which I thought was cool.
You're doing good work.
And now you, young lady, I mentioned in your introduction the term scream queen, and I know some actresses do not appreciate that. What's your view on that?
Well, I actually, I have a column in Fangoria now that I've done for about 4 or 5 years, and that started because that question was asked to a young gal named Bria Grant. She's an actress and also a director now. And somebody said, how do you feel about the term scream queen? And she said, and this was over Twitter, and then she said, I think you should ask my friend Barbara Crampton, because I think she's one. And then I said, you know, I actually understand that people say it with reverence, but I prefer not to be called one. Mm-hmm. At the time, that's what I said. Okay, everybody's going, oh, really? Is that what you think? But I think, and then I wrote an article about it for Fangoria. And I said at the time that I thought that it was a little bit reductive, because, yes, you agree, baby. Because it doesn't really encompass all of what a female heroine of horror goes through. You know, the smarts, the intelligence, the wits, the dynamism that a woman has to carry in a lot of these films that we've all grown up with. And I just felt like it was putting us in a box, and I never heard the term Scream King. And so I don't, I don't really get it. And I just, women get reduced to things sometimes, and I just felt like I wanted to push back on that a little bit. When I wrote this article, I asked people like Edgar Wright gave me a quote, and Linnea Quigley gave me a quote, and Felissa Rose, and then Heather Langenkamp, and like all these different people told me what they felt about it. And I want to say again, I understand that people think of it like, you should be proud to be a scream queen, and I am, but I just want people to think about what that means for women, just calling a person a certain thing and the connotation of what it is.
Sure, that makes perfect sense.
I got the baby, and I got a few more. Thank you.
As long as the baby agrees, we're in good shape here. One of the films that we ran of yours was Castle Freak, and that was shot in Italy, I believe. That must have been very cool, shooting in an old, real Italian castle.
It was, well, we shot From Beyond in Italy as well.
Oh,
and then that was on the old Dino De Laurentiis studios in Rome. And then when we went back to shoot Castle Freak, Charlie Band, who you guys might know, his father, Albert Band, worked in Italy a lot. And so he had a fondness for Italy, Charlie did, and he bought a castle in a town called Giove, Italy. It was halfway between Rome and Florence. And he just started making movies there. He made Castle Freak, and he made, what else did he make? Dolls, and then he made something else, and I can't remember. Subspecies, maybe, I'm not sure. But, you know, yeah, we were living in the castle and working in the castle at the same time. And it was really cool. At night, we would tell ghost stories. Stuart and Jeffrey and I would like sit around and tell each other ghost stories. I have a fond memory of that. And I think that movie, if you know Stuart's filmography, that was kind of a departure for him, that film. It was a lot more serious than some of his other work and even later work. You know, Stuart was known for being very funny and finding the humor in every single moment, but he wanted to make a very serious horror film, so that was one, there's nothing funny in that. No. Maybe, except for the title. It's kind of funny, Castle Freak. I don't know.
And did you have to learn to scream in Italian, since you were making an Italian? No, it would be like, ah!
See? Actually, that was much better.
Well, I'm half Italian, so I guess that works. Joe, we were talking about the Universal movies, and I understand The Bride of Frankenstein is especially a favorite of yours.
Well, Bride of Frankenstein is the pinnacle of the 1930s horror movie, and it's interesting because I sort of think of it as James Whale's Gremlins 2, because he didn't really want to make a sequel to Frankenstein.
Right.
And he avoided it because he didn't want to get typed. And so he made a whole bunch of other kinds of movies. And then when they came back to him with Bride of Frankenstein, they brought it to him the same way Warner Brothers brought Gremlins 2 to me, which is, we really want this, and if you'll do it, we'll let you do whatever you want. And so he said, okay, and he made this very unusual, offbeat, personal movie, which is not what they expected, but it's a brilliant movie. And in the case of Gremlins 2, I just made a movie about why there shouldn't be a sequel to Gremlins.
That's one of the things that I wanted to ask is, we see all your movies. What was the real influence? What movies influenced you to make horror movies?
Well, every movie I've ever seen.
The movies that made you, Joe.
It's the title of my podcast, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
I'm influenced by every movie I've ever seen, but I was particularly, I'm a atomic fear child. I'm a child of the 50s, and when I went to the movies, I couldn't see any 1940s Frankenstein movies in my theater because it was that I could only see what they were making. Sure. And what was going on at the time was there was a lot of fear. And there was a lot of fear of atomic war, and there was a lot of fear of communists, and all of that stuff got turned into monster movies. There were all these palpable examples like Godzilla and giant ants and stuff that were sort of avatars of what people were really afraid was going to happen. And so I sort of grew up with that, and I found that I loved horror movies even though they gave me nightmares. And my parents would say, if they give you nightmares, why do you watch them? Because they're the ones who had to deal with it when I went home. And I said, I can't help it. I just like these movies. They give me something. I don't know what it is. And I think that over the years, it's been proven that people love horror movies. They love horror stories. They love going to horror movies for the same reason they want to go on a roller coaster. It's because they want to be able to have this fear and confront it. And it's not an accident that of all the genres, the Western used to be the big genre, and now nobody makes Westerns. But horror movies, they still make horror movies.
Yeah.
And horror movies are still popular the first weekend particularly, and if they're good, they last a long time.
That's very nice.
I had a psychologist friend that told me something I'll never forget. He said, people make more decisions in life based on fear than love. So we make our decisions based on what we're afraid of.
Well, that's how they did the last election.
That's a paid political announcement. Thank you. Talking about the various things you've done, I was talking to Robert earlier about having done Shakespeare. You did King Lear.
Wow, that's going for a deep cut.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did. at I can't even remember the name of the theater in New York City, and I played Cordelia in King Lear.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It just shows your versatility. It's so amazing that I think a really good actress can do the horror, the comedy,
Yeah.
and all the serious stuff.
Yeah.
She's not retiring.
No, I got more movies to make. Yeah.
Definitely. I don't want either one of you to retire because I've enjoyed your work, and it's a very special thing to have both of you here with us. I know you're going to meet a lot of fans tomorrow, and I'm one of them. So as I'm passing by, I will make sure that I wave.
Please do, and do us a favor, don't retire.
Thank you. Barbara Crampton and Joe Dante, ladies and gentlemen.